All right, so today we're in section 7.3, linear functions. So when we put it on a graph, or when we're reading a graph, it's going to be a straight line. All right, so in Algebra 1, you start to look at nonlinear functions. We call them quadratic equations, but we don't do that in pre-algebra. But you got to have linear down pat, because it starts getting real weird and the lines start waving around up and down, and we have to have a foundation. Our foundation is linear equations and linear functions. This should look familiar to you. All right, say it with me. Function form, okay, can be written y equals mx plus b. All right, this is familiar to us. M stands for what? M is my what? Slope. It's my slope or my rate. And B is my y-intercept. What does y-intercept mean?
When you intercept y.
Right? Where the line crosses the y-axis. All right? The lesson's not long, so just plug in, focus what I'm saying, and then I promise it's not going to be too long today. All right? Okay. So, what two things do I need to write an equation? I need my slope and my y-intercept. Can I get that from a graph? Yes. Absolutely, okay? And my goal is to write it in y equals mx plus b form. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to write the formula. Y equals mx plus b. All right? The slope or the rate is the distance between two of my points on the line. And you can pick any of the 2 points. So Talandis, you might pick the second and the third one. All right, Tyler, he might pick the third and the fourth one. It does not matter because a linear function is going to have a constant rate. All right, so you can pick any one of them. Let's just start with the bottom two. Remember, rate is rise over run. My slope is rise over run. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. I rise 3, and how many do I run? 1, 2. So y equals 3 over 2x. Does everybody see how I got 3 over 2? I counted my slope. All right, how do I figure out my b? How do I figure out b? Where does it cross the y-axis? So the line crosses the y-axis at a y value of what? -3. So you just write -3. That's all you have to do. All right, any questions? Any questions? Okay, so now, didn't I give you a second one? Okay, I want you to do this one. Be careful on your slope. Which way is my line going from left to right? It's going down, so what is going to be true about your slope? Negative. It's going to be negative, all right? So I want you guys to work on this for a minute. When you have your equation done, I want you to turn to a neighbor and compare your answers. If they're different, you need to decide who is correct. All right, so we're going to pause here for just a couple minutes. All right, so here we go. So we compare. Again, we're using slope-intercept form. So y equals, and then we count our slope. So we went down how many? Down 1. So our rise is -1. And we went over 2, so -1 over 2x. Did you guys get that? -1 over 2x. And then what is my b value? -1. How did you guys know that? Because the line crossed the y-axis at -1. Y equals -1/2 x minus 1. Everybody go with that? Okay, good job. Okay, all right, so use the table to write a linear function that relates y and x together. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use 2 ordered pairs from the table. It can be any 2 ordered pairs. All right, so look at the first table. You have your x values and your y values. Again, you can pick the first one and the second one and the third one. Okay, so just pull out 2 ordered pairs. Remember, that's x and y together. So let's just all do the first 2. All right, so we have -3 and 9. And we have negative 2 and 7. So I want you guys to find your slope. Remember, we need 2 pieces of information to write an equation. We need slope and y-intercept. So the first thing we're doing is we're finding the slope. All right, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and find your slope. All right, so we found the slope, and we got negative 2. 7 minus 9 over negative 2 plus 3. So now, do we need point slope? Ooh, remember that word, point slope? You need point slope if no ordered pair in the table tells you the y-intercept. Does an ordered pair in the table tell you the y-intercept?
Yes.
Yes. The one that's paired with an x value of 0. So this actually is a step back from what we did at the end of chapter 4. Because they want to give that to you in chapter 4. They're giving it to you right here. This 0, 3 means that you go up 3 and plot your point. That's your y-intercept. All right, can anybody read me the equation? What is the equation that you got from this problem, Talinda?
Y equals
Negative 2x plus 3. Do you see how she got the plus 3 from the ordered pair? All right, I want you to do the next one on your own. Some of you might have already started. Raise your hand when you have the answer. And I also want you guys comparing your answers with your neighbors once you get it. Okay, so here's a helpful hint. Okay, I really want you guys to write out your ordered pairs. Okay, so 0, negative 1. Write them out because visually it's much easier to keep them in order. Okay, so I saw a lot of people switch up the slope because they tried to do it mental math. So m equals, what's my y2 value here? What's y2? Negative 1 minus negative 2 over 0 minus negative 2. There's a lot of double negatives, weren't there? Okay, double negative changes to a positive 1/2. Okay, now which ordered pair? Look at the table. I have 2 ordered pairs that have a 0 value, but only one of them is my y-intercept. AJ, what do you think? Which one is your y-intercept? Yes, he said 0, negative 1. Can anybody explain why that one is it and not 2, 0? Because 2, 0 had a 0 in it too. Taylor?
If the negative 1 is in the y section.
Yes, okay. So if I plot 2, 0, I'm going over to an x value of 2 and 0. That's the x-intercept, not the y-intercept. The y-intercept goes in my equation. All right, so Gabe, what'd you get for your equation? Can you read it to me?
Y equals 1/2 x minus 1.
Yes, y equals 1/2 x minus 1. Did you guys get it?
Yeah.
All right, so common mistake we saw here was 2x, okay, just because some people got the order switched up. All right, so we wrote a function from a graph. We wrote a function from a table. And now we're going to do some very important work here, which is interpreting, okay? So I know that this is the part where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to put this into a sentence, okay? But it's so important that you understand. All right, so if you don't hear anything, hear me on this. I got about 5 minutes left, okay? You understand what slope means. Slope is a rate. It's what connects my x and my y values together. How are they related to each other? All right, so it says a table shows the revenue in millions of a company when it spends so millions of dollars in advertising. All right, so we have advertising. You need to understand what the categories mean. So you have advertising dollars, and then you have revenue. Does everybody see that? Okay, so what forms of advertising? Let's try to kind of make a real life example. What kind of advertisements do you see companies do? Y'all just tell me. Commercials. Super Bowl's coming up on Sunday. We got them commercials, right?
Wendy's.
Okay, billboards. What else? Wendy's commercials. Okay.
Trucks.
All right. Semi-trucks. All right. You see the advertisements on the side of company trucks and whatnot. Billboards and commercials probably are the most common. All right. So they're spending money on advertising. Do my forms of advertisement, do they translate to revenue? Meaning, The more money I put into advertising, is it increasing my revenue? That's what we're looking at. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to graph each one of these ordered pairs. Okay, go ahead and plot each one of these ordered pairs on your graph.
It's not.
Okay, so apparently I copied the wrong graph into your notes. So everybody just look up here, okay? The interpretation really is the most important. All right, so 0, 2. I've got my first point here, 0, 2. All right, and then I have 2, 6 over 2 up 6. And then I have over 4 up 10. Y'all just check me and make sure I'm doing this right. Over 6 up 14. And over 8 up 18. Okay, now I'm going to try to get my line straight through these points. Hopefully I can get it straight enough. Okay. All right, so here's my line. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to write an equation, okay? So it says interpret the slope. Well, how can I interpret the slope if I don't even know what it is, right? So now that it's on the graph, can we write the equation? Can we do that together? All right, so let's count the slope together. I go from a 2 up to a 6. So I go up, how many? Let's count it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go over 1, 2. So 4 over 2. So I want you to write this down somewhere next to your graph. Don't write it in the slope part. Y equals 4 over 2 x. All right. And then can I see where it crosses the y-axis? It crosses the y-axis on a value of 2. Does everybody agree? Okay, plus 2. Now, is my slope able to be reduced? Yes, I could reduce it. All right, so let's just write it again with a reduced slope. 4 over 2 reduces to what?
2.
Keep it 2 over 1, okay? And you'll see why in a minute. I almost didn't reduce it, but we'll reduce it just to kind of stick with the same. That's what we always do. We reduce the slope. Okay, all right, so I want to interpret the slope. Well, in order to interpret the slope, all right, Taylor, what is my slope of this equation? What is my slope? 2 over 1. All right, I want you to write 2 over 1 under interpret slope. Okay, 2 over 1 is rise over run. Does everybody agree? Rise over run. Which means that this is revenue over advertising. You have to name it. In order to interpret the slope, you have to understand what your rise values meant. That's what the table is telling you. My rise values are my revenue. My run values are my advertising. And now we're going to put this into a sentence. Now, does 2 stand for $2? Stands for $2 million. All right, try to put it into a statement. It's just one simple sentence to interpret the slope. Okay, you could start it with the company will make. You could start it with those words. Under interpret slope. All right, so we could start it with the company will make. Can anybody raise your hand and finish that statement for me? The company will make what? I know, I see her. I want more. Give me more, guys. The company will make what, Miley?
$2 million.
For?
Every advertisement.
Every how much? In revenue. Make sure you tell me it's revenue. For every how much? 1 million spent in advertising. Now, if that is going to directly translate, I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right, the company is going to make $2 million in revenue for every $1 million in advertising. Which ordered pair, any questions on slope? Is this making a little more sense? Because we did this last week too. The interpretation, are the interpretations getting a little easier? Okay, hopefully they are. Because this is a challenging part of algebra, is interpreting the slope and y-intercept. Okay, which ordered pair, all right, let's see. Who have I not called on? Jonathan. Which ordered pair tells me my y-intercept? Which ordered pair? 0, 2, very good. So again, you cannot interpret the y-intercept if you don't know which order pair tells it to you, okay? So 0, 2. Everybody good with that? 0, 2. So remember, my first number is my x value or my run value. So 0 stands for what? 0 is in which column?
Advertising.
Advertising. So 0 means advertising. And what does 2 mean? 2 is my revenue. So can you put that into a sentence? All right, go ahead and try it. Put it into a sentence. Put it into a sentence for your y-intercept. Okay, can you put that into a sentence? You're telling me what it means, and we're going to take it one step farther in just a second. All right, put this into a sentence for me. All right, can anybody do it? You got it. I know you got it. I told you what they stand for. Hayden, what do you think? You have it? Not yet? Kayla? You got it yet? If the company spends. Can anybody finish that sentence? If the company spends, Sam?
Sam don't know it.
Yeah, he does.
I put for every 0 million spent on advertising, the company will make $2 million.
Okay, so you're explaining it like a rate though, because it's not for every, okay? It's just specifically in this scenario. If the company spends, how much did the company spend in this order pair? Spends nothing. Nothing, no money. In advertising, they can expect, all right, say it louder. They can expect $2 million. No. $2 million in revenue. All right. Has anybody ever heard of the term word of mouth? Word of mouth? Like a company that relies on word of mouth, they don't advertise at all. Maybe they just don't want to grow. Like they're happy with their $2 million a year in revenue. Okay. But they rely purely on customers just telling, oh, hey, anybody looking for a lawn care business? Oh, yeah, I got a great lawn care guy. Give him a call. That's free advertising. Okay. So here's what this order pair is telling me. The company spent nothing in advertising. You have to know that your X value in this scenario meant advertising. That's what the table told you. They can expect revenue of $2 million. All right. What kind of relationship do I see here between X and Y? Ooh, it's real nice. Real nice positive. Do you think that they should keep or fire their advertisement manager?
Keep that one.
Do you think they need to keep their advertising managers or fire them?
Keep
They definitely need to keep them. They're doing something right. Right? They're making that now, if you're spending more and more money on advertising and your profits are going down, might be time for that person to find a new position. Okay? Does that make sense? Do you see how we can make that real life connection? Because I know sometimes that's hard to do in math, but it's actually pretty easy with this concept. All right? Okay. All right, we're going to cut it off here. We'll come back to this last example another time, and we're going to jump over to big ideas homework now.